Our webinar today, Do It Right the First Time, a webinar for first-time buyers. So just a few logistics to share before we dive into today's agenda. I want to remind everyone that we will be recording this webinar and we will send all registrants a replay shortly after the webinar is over. We also have, we'll have the slides available, and if you'd like a copy of the slides, just be sure to fill out the post-webinar survey that will pop up when the webinar is over, and just indicate that you'd like a copy of the slides as well. We're happy to share them. We will have a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. We'd love you to enter any questions. Thank you to those who have already shared questions with us in the registration form. But it's not too late. You can enter your questions at any time. So we have a very exciting agenda for you today with a real expert panel of people that are familiar with this first-time buyer experience. So their full bios are on the registration page, so I won't go into full detail about them, but I'll share a little bit as we walk through the agenda for today. So first, we have Nina McIntyre, Chief Marketing Officer at ETQ. She's responsible for all aspects of marketing strategy and planning at ETQ. She'll be sharing her insight into why there are more first-time buyers now and how for them to be successful, how you can be successful. Next, we have David Isaacson, who is our Senior Product Manager for Product Marketing, or our Senior Product Marketing Manager. He's got over 25 years experience in software and product marketing. He leads product marketing here at ETQ and will be sharing his learnings from working with customers and prospects every day as to the benefits of a QMS to first-time buyers. Next, we have Bhavin Virani, Senior Principal Consultant. He's been with ETQ for over 13 years and is responsible for so many successful implementations, can't even mention them all. Certainly one's quality leaders such as ExxonMobil, Mars, Corning, Coca Cola, and Alaska Air are just a few. And he's done it all here, whether it's technical configurations, gathering business requirements, providing implementation guidance, solution design. He'll be sharing his insights on the requirements for a successful implementation and what he's learned along the way. And last, but certainly not least, we have Angie Mays, VP of Customer Success and Experience. Angie's group is responsible for customers after implementation. She's a real business process guru, and her experience and intense focus on the customer, she's implemented many innovative processes for customers, and she'll be sharing those and the rationale behind them and how first-time buyers can be successful after implementation, which is such an important area. You don't want to just deploy software, but you really want to make sure that you're successful afterwards. So a little bit about ETQ before we dive into the agenda. ETQ is committed to providing quality management solutions that provide competitive advantage. We've been doing this for customers for over 29 years. And we do that with a broad portfolio of 40 ready-to-use applications, ranging from new product introduction in the design phase all the way to tracking customer interactions and feedback, all in a state-of-the-art cloud-native agile platform, providing our customers the ability to easily and rapidly adapt to changing business requirements. We consistently win awards, not just from analysts, but also quality professionals like you. We've been rated a leader on the top peer review site G2 for the QMS category 8 consecutive times. We're headquartered in Boston with a widely distributed team to meet the needs of our customers. Another unique strength is our diverse customer base across many industries, which speaks to the flexibility of our platform to meet a wide range of demands. But it also benefits our solutions with the cross-pollination of innovation across these industries. Our belief statement is that quality is more than a cost and can be a revenue driver to help differentiate the business and provide an ROI. One of the key ways that we do that is we help our customers by providing a flexible platform that can easily adjust and grow with the business. And this is why we designed ETQ Reliance to grow with the changing needs of our customers. Quality systems can't have fixed and inflexible processes. They need to quickly adjust to your changing needs. So with that, I'm excited to turn things over to Nina.
Thank you, Art. Well, that flexibility is really proven out when you look at our customer base. We have over 600 customers across over a dozen industries. And as you look at these logos on our slide here, you can see various levels of complexity in these customers, some very, very large global brands, as well as some smaller customers who maybe have a more straightforward QMS environment. So we handle that range of complexity. We do complex super well, but we also handle out-of-box experiences that are straightforward, easy to implement. We have customers who come in as veteran QMS users, veteran QMS buyers. We also have many customers who come in as a first-time QMS buyer, and that's why we are having this webinar today. We're seeing a real uptick in this. One customer I was going to point out, several first-time QMS buyers. Rivian, the EV company, is on that logo slide. We also have Purple, the very innovative mattress company. They were a first-time QMS buyer, and in many cases, that's the result of a startup, a new company. But you also see very mature and very successful companies that have been able to get along with legacy systems. But as I indicated, and I think we're all here because we are seeing quite a bit of interest in adapting a QMS for the first time. And I think there's a number of reasons for this. First of all, QMS solutions in general are now proven, and they're bringing advanced capabilities that you really can't touch in spreadsheets or SharePoint or in paper-based systems. It's just understood more broadly in the quality and in the manufacturing operations community that there's a better way to do things. Certainly when it comes to things like advanced analytics, there have been radical improvements in how to manage processes with suppliers, which has been an area for companies that want to lead, have in many cases done so because they manage suppliers very effectively. Also, the security and the ability to integrate processes across the operations are now very proven in a QMS, and companies realize that's just not as easy to do in SharePoint. And then, of course, the pandemic has played a key role in this increased urgency. My colleague Morgan Palmer was quoted in this month's Quality Magazine. It's a great quote. He says that now the QMS is being acknowledged as an essential worker during COVID-19. So the QMS is something that's really acknowledged as a critical part of managing things efficiently. And that has to do certainly with remote work and hybrid work. That's been a factor during the pandemic. It's also been super important for your processes to adapt. Things like remote audits, things like adjusting a process, adjusting who you're training, how you're training, perhaps having workers badge in for access to equipment and knowing that the training is appropriate to them. These sorts of use cases have been something that our customers have worked really hard and worked with tremendous energy and innovation to adapt their processes during these challenging times. So having a QMS really helps you do that. Ideally, your QMS is flexible and adaptable, so you can change your processes. Before we move on to our guidance, I just want to recap what are some of the challenges with Excel and SharePoint and paper-based systems. These are well understood, so I won't spend long on it, but certainly an Excel-based system or a paper-based system, it's just not flexible. it's brittle. When things change, when processes change, it's difficult to change those processes. Next, these legacy systems are they're siloed. It's very difficult to share information across systems. It's 1 + 1 does not equal 3 in that case. It's like 1 + 1, maybe you get a half if you really can't share effectively. It's also difficult to share data with applications that are critical, such as putting inventory on hold. These are essential processes. Maybe there's workarounds, but there are better ways to share information. Lack of visibility is a third very significant area. If you want to share information on quality trends, or you want to track information, just having that data at your fingertips on how have your CAPAs been trending, or what are your trends in being aligned on your training goals, management reporting, those sorts of elements are difficult to achieve. And then finally, just the inefficiency of these legacy systems. I don't want to dwell on it. I think you're here because you recognize this. We were talking with a prospective customer who's a first-time QMS buyer the other day, who expressed to us, just with some kind of frustration, this quote, just simply saying that their system is just so inefficient. It's in fact harder for them to share a file on SharePoint, or to store a file on SharePoint, than it is to train the company on it. So it kind of speaks to the frustration of some of these systems. And I do respect how well people have been able to make these systems work, but there is a certain point in time where we're seeing more and more people saying, okay, we're ready. We're ready to take the plunge. So this webinar is designed for those of you who are ready to dive in and to start to take a look at the elements of success. And the session really deals with how you define your goals. We will talk about how you prioritize your goals. Where do you start is a topic that we plan to cover in our panel here. How to be prepared for your project implementation is our second topic. Ways and to be, as you enter your implementation, how do you think about the steps you'll take post-implementation to ensure your ongoing success? And then a topic that's really woven throughout is how to get support really from every corner, because you need support as you make the decision to purchase a QMS, and you also need support and collaboration with your peers, with your QMS partner as you implement. And then when you go live, you want to have a partnership with your company to ensure adoption. You want a partnership with management as you communicate your successes with your QMS, so management stays bought in. And then of course, you need a QMS partner who will be there for you to support you at every step. So thank you for this chance to give you this introduction. What I'd like to do now is introduce David, and I'm going to ask David a question, which is, if a company's gotten along pretty well without a QMS, why should they take the plunge now, David?
Yeah, thanks, Nina, and that's a great first question to get us rolling here. As you can see on the picture, it's like cutting through the maze of all the different things you need to think about. And so as you look at moving from paper or Excel or antiquated types of ways of managing quality management, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why customers and prospects are looking at moving now. And for example, as it says there, a single source of truth of quality. Today, with older systems, with Excel files, I mean, how many different Excel files do you have? How many different file cabinets do you have with paper in them? It's hard to find that single source of truth. It's hard to get all the information in one place. So not having access to that information is really, really critical. In fact, when the pandemic hit back in like March or April of last year, we got a call from a prospect who said, help, we've all been sent home. we can't get access to our paper files, but we've got an audit coming up. What do? How do we, make this so it's online and everybody has access to the same information? So that kind of a need is really critical and is out there, and we're hearing that from companies all the time. A second is gaining insight for continuous improvement. You have all this data. What do you do with it? How do you analyze it? So having the right analytic tools and the ability to have all this data in one place and then say, okay, oh, I see trends that are occurring, or we're seeing the same problem over and over again. We may not have even noticed that before, but now we see it, so we can start to take corrective action. We can start to change our processes and really be in front of all of these issues that might arise before they become critical problems for our customers. Another area, and again, the pandemic, if it hasn't taught us anything, is that change is really on top of us right now, and we have to adapt. We have to look at, how our processes are running, whether we're in person, whether we're remote, supply chain problems. All of these issues have forced us to change and adapt, and your QMS needs to be able to come along with you, and in fact, not be in your way in terms of blocking you from making those changes. Another is compliance. If you're in life sciences, for example, the need to be FDA compliant has not gone away over the last 18 months. If anything, it's become more stringent. So being in compliance, whether it's for life sciences or ISO 9001, ISO 27001, any of these types of ISO requirements and other requirements in your industries, still going to be really critical. Another area is minimizing errors, and that's one thing, when we go back to that single source of truth and having all that information in one place, it helps you have the same information and therefore reduce the amount of errors that might flow in. We're not keying things into multiple systems. We don't have two different versions of the same document. So we're all dealing with information that is consistent. And then collaboration and security. We've got it online. We've got it in a place where everybody can get to it. That allows us to collaborate more effectively, but we also are able to keep things much more secure. Believe it or not, in the cloud, information is really secure these days. So I think when you start to look at all of the different aspects, and we start to say, okay, a QMS makes a lot of sense because it brings a lot of this to the table that we just talked about, but there are a whole lot of other reasons why, and that you can uncover as you go forward here.
David, there's lots to think about here.
Yeah.
Where should someone start?
There are a couple of different areas where you got to think about starting. First of all, as the picture says over there, think big. So you want to think about your total environment and probably where you want to be, not tomorrow, but a year, 2 years from now. But that doesn't mean you need to bite off everything at once and dive right in. What you really want to do is start with smaller projects that you can get some success on, that you can show the organization that you've got something that makes sense for the organization, and you can grow that success over time. And as you go over time, you're going to learn really fast what works for you, what changes need to be made. So really start with the basics. Define your requirements, define your KPIs, and then what we see a lot of customers do is start with things like document control. Let's just bring all that information in one place and manage it properly. Training. So we've got all our documents online, we have all our procedures and processes. Now let's make sure everybody in the organization has been trained appropriately. And we can track that. We can see who's been trained, how they've done. You can quiz them. And so making sure that training is there is really important as well. A third area, audits. I mean, everybody goes through them. So having an audit-ready QMS is going to simplify a lot of lives. And in fact, we've seen over time that having an audit-ready solution can really be a time saver, be a productivity enhancer, and just make everybody's lives a lot easier. And then corrective actions. I mean, part of the lifeblood of a quality management group is making sure that things are working properly, but also reacting when things don't go the right way, and handling CAPAs and making sure that you're responding appropriately and you're tracking them. And this goes back also now what I talked about in terms of trending. You start to make these corrective actions, and maybe you see the same problem showing up multiple times, and it can help give influence and guidance as to what you should be doing. And then over time, take a look at other functions. QMSs these days, like what you have with what ETQ provides, are really rich in functionality. So you're not stuck with these first 4 capabilities, but look at how do you integrate with other business systems and share information, like with an ERP or an MES, HR system, CRM, lots of different ways you can integrate and share this information and make it even more valuable. And then also include your suppliers in the process, because when we look at our customers, it's amazing how many suppliers they have. I mean, I've seen some of our customers, like Wabtec, for example, they make engines for locomotives. They have like 17,000 suppliers. There's no way to manage that on a spreadsheet. You need a QMS or some type of a system that can really help you with that activity.
David, these elements here really, as we know, because we're in this space, provide lots of value. Can you help our audience here understand how to approach the business value of the QMS, and maybe a little bit of how to communicate that business value to peers and to senior leadership to help make the case?
Sure. We did some research in our customer base and in the broader quality market as well, and we found 4 key areas where we've seen significant return on a QMS investment, and they're shown here on the screen. Reducing the risk of noncompliance. Nobody wants to be noncompliant. Nobody wants to get faulted in an audit. Nobody wants to have an adverse action taken against them that could lead to fines or even worse. So making sure you're compliant, really critical. And a lot of times you don't mean to be non-compliant, but again, with all the complexities and inability to access information accurately, you may get to that point. So having that, and the time spent on just being compliant becomes a real time saver for an organization. Another area is streamlining operations. You can see time spent on just simple tasks like managing documents and getting them approved can save time. And especially in organizations that are just looking at their first QMS, they're smaller, they don't have a lot of resources, so spending time on these types of activities is a drain of really useful time that you could be used to tackle other more important activities. And once you get outside of the productivity side of it, there's some real costs as well. Making sure that scrap, waste, warranty, recalls, things like that are managed more effectively, and therefore you have lower costs in that area. Really can help drive the cost side of companies' books. And then finally, it's not just about the cost savings, it's also about driving revenue. We get out into the market, we're selling product, we want to have a good reputation. We also want to get those products in the market more rapidly because we can start generating revenue more quickly. If you have a bad reputation or you ship a bad product, it gets out really quickly. As I like to say, it's not called Instagram for anything, as people put the reviews out there. It's you've lost control at that point. So really critical to make sure that your QMS is there, and it can really drive some significant value for the company.
Thank you. Thanks, David. I'd like to introduce Bhavin Virani, who's played a vital role in hundreds of QMS implementations. And Bhavin, I'd like you to address how you would advise a prospective QMS customer to approach their implementation. What should they be thinking about at this point and in the early stages?
Thank you, Nina. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of talk about some of the implementation best practices. So I think the first thing which is very important that we have seen through numerous implementations is to know your priorities. As a project sponsor or as a C-level or a VP level person from a quality standpoint, you may think of priorities being the core functionalities like audits, document control, training management, what have you. But there might be areas within the organization, such as non-conformances, such as training, which are bigger problems that you need to address, rather than trying to focus on the core. So it often happens that there is a mismatch between priorities that are easier wins for you within the organization, and I think defining those up front help you focus in the proper area so that you can get a quick win within the organization. So defining your priorities is definitely the first key step. And then once you've kind of defined them, you can take a phased approach to implementation. So you know that you have 10 things to achieve. You cannot do 10 things all at once. Let's kind of break it up into pieces that we can implement and get solution rolled out. This approach will be true irrespective of which QMS vendor you're with. You have to make sure that you take a phased approach and you don't necessarily try to do a full big bang type of implementation. The other key piece to know is, and something that you should consider from your evaluation standpoint from a QMS vendor, is to know who offers a true out-of-the-box solution that you can start with. You'll find a lot of vendors out there who claim to have QMS capabilities, but what's important is how many years of experience has gone into building that out of the box, and also whether can you use that out of the box straight up. Do you have any major configurations, major building to do in order to use that out of the box? So it's very important to know that as you're looking for a vendor who has the out of the box capability and whether can you adopt that out of the box or not. The other key thing is also within the out of the box that sometimes within your organization there are many disparate processes and different ways of doing things differently. This often acts as an opportunity for you to sort of harmonize everything to one way of working and not necessarily continue working the same way that you are. And last but not the least, while you adopt the out of the box, it doesn't mean that you're stuck with that. You can enhance as you go. You can add functionalities, add features, make your users' life easier as you go, as you implement. And that is something that could also be a key consideration as you're thinking about your QMS partner.
Super. Bhavin, would you take us through an example of one successful implementation and kind of what the takeaways were?
Thank you. Sure, absolutely. So a fast food chain that we worked with about a year and a half ago, they're number one in customer quality and customer satisfaction. And they came to us where they were opening up 2 of numerous distribution centers, and they wanted a world-class QMS that they could not only start with these 2 distribution centers, but expand it and scale it out to those 25 distribution centers. They had a clear focus. They had an objective in mind. They didn't want to steer away or build a process, their existing process into the system. They wanted to adopt an out-of-the-box platform, and they wanted to start from there. They knew what they wanted, and that really helped them in achieving close to going live with 12 applications within a very short 5-month timeframe, which is a big feat within itself. But the key reasons why they were able to do that is they had an end goal in mind, that they had to make sure that they were staying out of the box. They were not walking away. They were not steering too much away from the out of the box. Funny story, they actually had a timer in their office rooms as well, with the end goal and the end date in mind. They adopted the out of the box as they were implementing the software, which led them to a faster time to value. If you adopt an out of the box platform, what it means is that you can go live quick and people can start using the system. So now what you talked about 3 months ago is something that you're already using, and it just helps the user see their efforts in real time. So that's very powerful, especially in the ERP space. You've seen that implementations take years, if not months. A quick time to value helps you get sooner results, and they partnered with us as well. So a lot of deliverables from an implementation perspective, they worked with us to make sure that we were helping them through the key milestones. So in a sense, a dedicated team, a clear focus, a razor sharp timeline led to a successful implementation. And as you're thinking about your QMS partner, you should think about these things as well, so that you can achieve a quick time to value within your organization.
Super, it's a great example. It's making me hungry though, looking at that picture. Bhavin, so you talked about a dedicated team. Do you mean like completely dedicated, or is it kind of they also have their day jobs? And then who are those resources that you want to dedicate to the project?
Absolutely. So there are 4 key roles that we see with any implementation project. And while there are some roles which are definitely more involved than the others. I can give you some idea on what those are and kind of how you can roll out within the organization. So generally what we have seen is there is a sponsor involved both on the ETQ side, I mean on the vendor side and on our customer side, where the sponsor is responsible for steering the project in the right direction and making sure that we don't, we stay focused, we don't veer away from that. It's important to have a project manager within each organization, whether it's your vendor or whether it's yourself, to make sure that all the tasks are defined and everybody knows what their responsibilities are. There are two other roles which are important as well. So any QMS provider that you choose, it's important to have an owner of the software. They'll be responsible for maintaining the software, managing the software over time. And then on the implementation side, typically there'd be a technical resource who would be the equivalent of that to help through the implementation process. And then lastly, there's a process owner. Process owners are subject matter experts within your organization. These could be people from within different areas of the organization, such as document control, training management, audits, CAPA. They bring in the process expertise of what is your CAPA process, what is your audits process. And it's very important for them to participate with your vendor so that they can communicate the right requirements. And then your vendor, whoever you choose to work with, is able to translate those requirements into a solution that will work for the business. Now, from a timing perspective, Nina, you asked a good question. How many people are involved? And in some cases, we have seen that sometimes the roles are shared. You could find potentially one person being quote unquote the project manager, the technical consultant, and the lead consultant all at once. From a customer standpoint, or the QMS owner rather, and the process owner. And in some cases, the organization varies where they have these roles and individuals defined. In addition to that, generally the project manager is more or less the key person who is sort of involved through the life of the project, but a process owner would be stepping in and out during requirements analysis, for example, or during testing, for example, making sure that their requirements that they communicated are implemented correctly and that they're able to verify everything works as expected. So to summarize in a nutshell, even though these roles are called out in a linear fashion where it may look like these people are involved throughout the project, typically there is a varied involvement depending on who the role is, how many roles, how many hats you're wearing through the implementation, and who the people are involved.
That's a great explanation. Thank you so much, Bhavin.
Sure.
I'd like to now ask Angie to join us to talk about preparing for success post-implementation. So, it's never too early to start thinking about that post-implementation time frame. Thank you.
Absolutely. You are right on with that. Plan early, right? This is where I tell my team, get that magical wand out. What's that wish list? Be thinking about that during your selection process, because it is going to pave the road for your journey ahead and your ultimate success. So what do I mean by that, right? So take a look at your current process and think, what am I looking to solve to? And how do I prepare to ensure that I can be successful? Change management is critical with that, right? You want to take where you're at and make sure that you're successful in where you're looking to go. The others is you have to identify what you want to measure. Too many times I see people deploying a solution and then they realize, I need all this information. Instead, think about that now and ensure what you're going to be selecting meets those needs, and more critically, can get you the data at your fingertips, because your leadership team is going to be asking you questions and we want to set you up for success. The other is bring your team. That team may be 1, that may be 5, that may be 100, but get people excited and solve things together. I think it's really important to do. You gotta set yourself up too with training. You have current state and future state, and we wanna make sure that the materials are there to bring along the way. So you'll see a theme here with me is bring the party to the table. Definitely we don't doing it alone.
Angie, the don't do it alone. I love that. So true. No matter what you do, think about how you could leverage help from others. What are some of the tools? I know, you've been thinking about resources and you've done some really innovative work here at ETQ, and we don't want to be too ETQ specific, but how did you approach the requirements of those tools for support?
I think the most critical is training, right? So you have your current processes and a future process, and we want to make sure that you're thinking about what is it going to take to get the team member, those behind you, up to speed and ready to go. Because as Bhavin was saying, that time to value is so critical. And so the most important here will be that training component, and really be in your selection process, be thinking, what will it take to get my team up to speed successfully? Is that online training? Is that a combination? And we find more and more organizations that have locations around the world, or you can see here, I'm working at my home, and you may have staff members doing the same. And so coordination is critical. So think about the vendor of choice. Do they have a great training program? Is there e-learning available in addition to that face-to-face component or the webinars like we're holding today, and making sure that it is available at your fingertips? The other is there live training opportunities? Here at ETQ, we do offer all that, but it's really important. I can just share just a quick number. We have over 220,000 course completions. And the idea here is we want to train your organization how to use our tool. Take that burden off your shoulders, because you're going to have plenty to do in your project.
Super. That's awesome. That's a really exciting resource that you want to look for in a partner. And we're super proud of what you've built, Angie, and that Academy program has been great. You've also done some great work around community, and tell us why you did that. What would you recommend someone look for in that kind of an area?
When selecting a vendor, it's really important that not only do you have the experts like the Bhavins and the Davids of the world, but you have the ability to engage with your peer set. So we here at ETQ offer a customer-to-customer community. You may be wanting to inquire with people in your industry, those that are deploying similar applications and solutions. And you may be asking them, what are you doing? What are your best practices? And we are really fortunate to provide this opportunity to our customers and a way that they can collaborate together. Literally, you can come into our community, post a question, and then follow people. There's, of course, some fun gamification, which I love, that includes badges and such, and webinars. We're always learning and teaching both ways, right, from our customers, and then also customer to customer. And this is really important. This don't do it alone is the one piece of advice that I really hope you take away today, because we here at ETQ offer really, I say, the big family of resources. We have Academy, we have the community, and then a lot of supporting team members in addition to support and customer success. So when selecting a solution, really think, what's that long-term partnership and how you can be successful?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Angie. Well, what I want to do at this point is we're getting ready to take some questions. And I just want to recap our panel of experts. And I want to thank David and Bhavin and Angie for joining us. Great conversation. And I think some really wonderful advice. So as you take the plunge, don't boil the ocean. I think that's our big takeaway. It can be overwhelming, but if you step by step define your goals and you gain internal support, you know what's going to really matter. As Angie just said, you want to make sure you can measure that so you can report your progress against that, but stay focused on those goals. It was also underscored, by David and by Bhavin in terms of just as you tackle your implementation. If you stay focused, love that story from our customer with the countdown clock, keeping them focused on their timing, because timing was a very important part of why they chose an out-of-box approach. And they stayed focused on implementing their top priorities all along. You want to also, this is where don't do it alone. Engage the team, engage your full team, engage your peers, engage management. If you have access to peers, I think it's super helpful if your QMS partner can introduce you, hopefully in a very easy way electronically, to a community of experts. Look for a customer conference. That's a very valuable program. Many of them are now virtual. That's a great way to meet peers, but also stay in touch online, and you want to have access to that. You can learn from each other. It's a really great way to advance your knowledge and best practices. And then fundamentally, you want to work with a partner who will bring resources to bear, who can be a trusted advisor, who has the experience to help you along the way, whether you're a first-time QMS buyer or you're now more advanced, and that first-time QMS, you're ready to expand your quality journey, you're ready to take on maybe some new challenges, and I'm really excited about what would possibly come next. And so actually, I think I want to ask my expert friends here to consider a question, and we're going to start with a question for each of you that I'm going to ask, and then you don't have to hear me ask questions anymore. I want to ask, as you think about expansion, as you think about our first-time QMS buyers, what might be an area of greater impact with a modern QMS? Where would you maybe go next? So, once you do kind of the essentials, what would be the next step? And let's just do it in presentation order. So, where would you take the QMS after you've implemented and rolled it out successfully? David, why don't you go first?
So there's lots of terminology out there right now: digital transformation, industry 4.0, all those things, factory of the future, smart factory. And I think the QMS actually plays a really strong role in helping get us to that digital transformation, getting everybody online and accessing information more effectively, regardless of where they are in the world. So I think that's where you're going to see a huge impact with implementing QMS in the future.
Super, Bhavin. What do you have for us?
I
Sorry.
think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Angie.
Bhavin, where would you, as you think about implementing that first phase, how to think about the future phases, and where would you guide in general? How should you be thinking about maybe a year or two?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you implement the first phase of any QMS system, the first phase guides you in two different ways. Number one, it shows you what you can achieve with that platform, and number two, it helps you better define your requirements. So I think it's very important to as you go into subsequent phases of implementation with any vendor, it helps you guide into making better design decisions, better requirements, and better communicating your process to the QMS vendor so that they can help you get the right solution within the organization.
Perfect. That's really helpful. Angie, what do you have?
A couple things I would add to that is, after that initial phase, really give your organization, your team, a moment to take it all in. It's going to take them a little bit to get used to the new process and new solution, and then really celebrate it. There's some fun things you can do as you're coming across the finish line, right? Do you have a virtual party, or do you have something that if it's safe and you could be on site, that you can really celebrate, and then get people's feedback, right? Kind of a start, stop, and continue to get to that next phase. I feel like this, quality is a journey. It's not just one time, one phase. And so I think what's critical is, don't swallow the ocean, right? Don't do it alone. But think of the small successes that you have as a team, and think of what's next. Here at ETQ, I'm kind of known as the tinkering queen. Nothing's ever done. I do one thing and then I come to this team and I'm like, guess what? I got a new idea, right? Some go really well. Some I need to step back and rethink, but that's the beauty of a journey, right? And as long as you're getting that great feedback and time it in your organization, that you receive that, you can always adjust the plan.
Thanks, Angie. I think we are seeing some questions in front of us here. Art, do you want to be our question slinger here for us?
Yes, absolutely. Really great presentation, folks. Thanks so much. Yeah, we've got some questions coming in here. Here's one from David around ROI. He's interested in hearing about the benefits of measuring ROI for quality investments, how to measure the value of your quality program for your business, how to communicate the value to business leaders in your organization, and what value metrics are most important in calculating ROI. So quite a bit there, but since the question is from David, I don't think anyone is better suited to answer it than another David. So David, I'll pass that one to you.
All right, thanks, Art. I'm going to try to be brief here. There is a lot to unpack in that question. You're going to, when you look at your ROI, and I showed that one slide that had a number of different areas, you're going to look at, simple things like how many auditors do you have, and how much time does it take to do an audit, and how much time can you save by having the QMS support you in that audit. Another area is, I talked about growing revenue and looking at, how fast can you get product to market. If you can shave 20% or 30% off the time of getting product to market, that's that additional revenue. So there's a whole lot of different areas that, and in fact, we have a white paper on our website that goes into a little bit more detail on that. That would be really valuable, I think, for folks to take a look at, and it helps give guidance as to some of those areas in terms of where you can see the value. And I think just to end on that, the one key thing to think about is you need to talk the language of business, right? You're going to talk about ROI, you're going to talk about return on investment, you're going to talk about different types of financial metrics, because that's what management's looking at. They're not looking at CAPAs and FMEAs and all the other things that we as quality people really care about.
Thanks, David. Here's a question from Dale. I think, Bhavin, for you. How does ETQ integrate with intuitive ERP? What is the total cost of ownership, and are there hidden costs, training, upgrades, support, etc.? This is an extremely important cost to understand in a smaller company with lower revenue.
Yeah, thank you, Art. So yes, absolutely. ETQ integrates with, Appian is just one example, but ETQ provides a wide range of API that allows us to integrate with any system there is. We've integrated with numerous systems, Epicor, SAP, ERP, JD Edwards. There's so many to name here. But we have the ability to integrate with any number of systems and as many integrations as you would like. Certainly, from an integration perspective, there are costs to account for. Not only from your QMS vendor standpoint, but also from your source system or target system standpoint. So, if, for example, the use case would be is you have a non-conformance and you're putting a product on hold in your ERP system, whatever you do to set up that integration on your QMS vendor would be one effort, but then there's also the effort of making sure that that hold gets passed to the ERP system as well. So as you're thinking of any integration with an external system within your systems landscape, it's very important to know that there is work that needs to be done on both the ends. With any QMS implementation, it's very important to also know that implementing a solution is only as good as, is going to help you so much unless you make sure that everybody's trained on it, everybody is using it, and everybody is able to provide right information into the QMS. So while you may spend the time and effort into building a solution that's perfect for your organization, if there's not enough training, if there's not enough communication or a steering team that is established for making sure that the users are on board and they're actually using the system, it won't lead you to a successful implementation. So the point that I'm trying to make is that while it's important to make sure that you invest your time in building the solution, it's also important to roll out the solution correctly and make sure that your users are able to use the system in a more effective manner.
Thanks, Bhavin. Another question that just came in around the presentation and the slides, and yes, we'll be sending the replay of this presentation or this webinar to all registrants shortly after today. And we also have the slides available for those people that want it. If you could just please complete the post-webinar survey to indicate that you're interested in those. I'm going to give this next question to Nina. It's from Dave. What is the approximate percentage of manufacturing companies continuing to use Word and Excel instead of purchasing a true QMS? Do you have any idea of what that might be, Nina?
Yep. So we did a study late 2018, and we actually went out and did some primary research with an outside consulting firm to try to understand that. I was quite surprised to hear back then that the range is like 25 to 30% of organizations have substantial teams or locations that do not have an automated solution. And perhaps if you, as defined, that would be a division or a corporate entity that doesn't have a QMS that would need a QMS, and they're using a spreadsheet or a paper-based system. If you defined it differently, maybe you'd say there's a higher adoption rate. If you just look at the corporate level, perhaps it's a higher adoption rate. But in terms of what people are experiencing, perhaps up to a third of the organizations that are, critical for managing quality do not have an automated system. Thanks,
Nina. You also might have noticed that we have some resources on the screen. It's just a reminder that on ETQ.com we have a great deal of resources to help you, in this situation. In fact, you could see there the white paper that David mentioned on ROI, as well as the recording of this presentation, and encourage you all to check out the resources there. So next question from, just see here, from, let's see, Rick, is should a QMS include process mining as part of its continuous improvement mandate? I don't think they're talking about the mining industry, Bhavin.
I wish they were, though. No, thank you. That's a good question. So process mining is a very interesting term, and it leads into something that is very close to our product roadmap, especially around machine learning and artificial intelligence. So one of the key things that we are seeing in the industry is the ability to take years worth of quality data and try to predict a pattern that you might see in the future. Like if I had 5 corrective actions in the same area on the same type of problem within a site, will there be a 6th event that will happen that will be similar to that? So yes, absolutely. I personally and we at ETQ, I think, collectively believe that process mining, trying to predict based on the data that's already in any QMS system, and trying to make sense out of it, and also predict patterns that you might be able to get value from, is something that is very important. And from our product perspective, that is a key milestone that we want to achieve, from a roadmap standpoint.
Thanks, Bhavin. Let's see. Let me just get this out of the way here. I think this is a good one for David to start, perhaps. From Bruce, how much benefit does a digital QMS provide over quality functionality available in a good ERP system?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because we've seen a lot of customers who started with their ERP and then have come to us saying, it's okay, maybe it's good enough, but it really doesn't handle the full breadth of quality capabilities or quality needs that the company needs. And part of that is because the QMS, like what we build in the marketplace, is really focused and purpose-built for for quality management. It's not an add-on. And in fact, when you're dealing with a best of breed, what's great, and like Bhavin talked about on the integration side, is that we can marry the two together and get the best of both environments and both worlds and share information very effectively. Bhavin, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're spot on, David. I think the perfect world is always a integrated system and not necessarily one system or the other. We are not an ERP for sure. We are QMS, but what I will say from 13 years of implementation experience is that I've not been through one implementation so far where we have not talked about an integration. So that is something that is a common theme that runs across any implementation. And ERP, LMS, you name it. These are the common systems that we implement with or integrate with, rather.
Now, questions, of course, are really, thanks, Bob, and they're really flooding in now with 5 minutes to go. We'll do our best to get to them all, but we will.
Love questions.
We will be sure, if we don't, get back to you offline afterwards.
Can I just add one thing to Bhavin and David's?
Of course, absolutely. We'd love to hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fabulous. I think this is a part of what's critical when selecting a partner, right? Think of all of those integrations with that magical wand I already gave you. Use it to the fullest, right? Think of all the great things, though that may not be in phase one, it may be phase 2 or 3. It's really important that there's that option when you're ready. So that would be the one thing that I would highly encourage you to think of that long-term plan as well. Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Oh, no, thank you. Love to borrow that magic wand sometime. But here's one I'll put out to the group. Let's see who wants to chime in and take this one. This is a good one. This is from Benjamin. Can the team provide tips, tricks, comments on getting buy-in from coworkers who created the Excel files that currently manage quality data and getting them excited about changing to an electronic QMS? I think this is a specific question, but also a little bit of a change management question.
Yeah. So on the implementation side, this is a common question that I come across. It's hard, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you have a person who's used to working in an Excel, a Word. It's kind of their baby, if you will. You know what I mean? And it's hard to transition them over from from that to a QMS. So what we've often found is involving them throughout the process, right from the day when you are selecting a QMS vendor, taking them all the way up to go live, allows them to slowly adapt to the new ways of working and eventually accept it as well. If you push a system onto them on the last day of go live and say, hey, here's your new system, go start using it, they'll obviously reject it because they'll feel like, you're taking my stuff away from me. But if you make them part of the process, make them, get involved right from the beginning, let them be part of the requirements, testing, going live, and so on, they naturally assume the ownership of that tool, and it just becomes a very easy transition.
Yeah.
As soon as they see some of the goodies that they'll get and the flexibility it has, that, invariably there are issues that they're dealing with. And so maybe they'll help you, Benjamin, recognize like where are the areas where they see some go ahead value. So giving them those goodies.
Yeah, remember, they're the ones who designed that system to begin with. So they probably have a lot of knowledge and experience from a quality management perspective. So their history is going to be critical and invaluable as you move forward.
Great
Okay,
question.
we're going to take one more, and then I think that will be all. This is from Andrew. How much support is available for software requirements development and verification validation testing? I think this is a more ETQ specific question.
And before we answer that, I do want to just repeat what Art said, that we will get back to folks with questions that we couldn't answer here with individualized answers.
Okay. So this one sounds more like a question on the implementation, so I guess I'll try to take at it. So from an implementation perspective, ETQ offers a full service implementation option along with a partner service implementation option as well. So from an implementation standpoint, we could offer a white glove service, end to end, where we can help you through requirements gathering, configurations, validation, verification, taking you all the way up to go live. That kind of service and support is available through any implementation. And then post-implementation, Angie's team generally take over, and I know she'll be happy to talk about it. They help you from a support and community standpoint. Angie, you want to add a few words?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, this is where that academy experience really comes into play on both ends of the experience before you're working with Bhavin and team on the implementation, just to get that foundational knowledge. And then after the go live, that's when we would be working directly with our support team, our customer success team. We have this huge family to ensure that there's ultimate success with the rollout. And so I always say, get ready for the love, because we have a lot of people here with their respective expertise that will ensure that Reliance is rolled out and successful from the very beginning.
All right, well, thank you, Angie, Bhavin, and thanks to all of you for really sharing your insights as to how to help people in this phase of their quality journey. I want to thank all of you who participated and attended today, and we wish you a great rest of the day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.